Welcome to another video of TaylorMade Rides. My name is Noah Taylor and I'm the host. Today, what we have is a super cool hot rodded Model T. Now, first off, I'm sure the majority of you are here because of this right here, this contraption. This is homemade, if you couldn't tell. You got your homemade header pipes, which will most definitely shoot flames out, and then your homemade intake. This thing is really unique because it's actually square tubing with a homemade flange bolted to a 3-barrel carburetor. Now, this is a traditional Ford carb, and this right here is where you adjust your choke. Now, this, I got it stuck, maybe needs a little grease. We'll get you up here and close, and you can take a look on how this whole thing works. And basically the idea of this build, if you will, it really is a build, and what we aspire to do with this. Now, before I take any credit for this, I actually have none. This is my father's hot rod Model T build, and he is doing it with his students here at the high school. I'm just fortunate enough to be in town and actually do a little interview with the car and show you all traditional hot rodding. This is what it started at. This is where we came to be today. And it takes you back to how Henry Ford got his first start when he raced his Model T to earn production rights. So without further ado, we'll get you up in here real close, show you all this custom work and coolness that this car has to offer. So here we have it up close. Again, this is our 3-bolt Ford carburetor. It is a 2-barrel. You can shoot down and look down there. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. But we have a 2-barrel Carter. No, I apologize. 2-barrel Ford right there. This is actually off of a flathead V8, 30 to 50s era. And what we have here, you can see it's about a 2.5-inch, 2-inch pipe. And this one will have a distributor on it. Most of these Ford Model Ts, if you're familiar, had coils, individual ones for each cylinder, up here on the firewall. You can actually see the old placement holders. Now, we are fortunate enough, or my father is, that he was able to get that along with something that you don't typically see on Model Ts, an alternator. Now, this replaced the generator, if you will, that charged the system, and a lot of times they actually had magnetos in the hogshead. So if you're unfamiliar, this piece right here, separate from the engine, they had magnets in here, and as the engine spun over, it would charge the system and it would create its own spark, much like a small Briggs & Stratton engine. This is the backside of that intake system. You can see we actually only have 2 runners on there, and the exhaust really doesn't hang out much farther than the intake. So it's a really unique setup, very loud. Unfortunately, this does not run right now. You can see we don't actually have any ignition system on it. But this will actually be raced in Yorkville, Illinois at the Jalopy Fest this upcoming summer. Very cool. Now, if any of you know anything about Model Ts, it's the fact that they were very, very primitive. They were arguably one of the first vehicles mass-produced. They were the first vehicle mass-produced, got Henry Ford on the map, and he raced one of these in order to get his, what would you call it, right to sell cars. So my father just walked into the room here, but he is building this off of the idea, hot rod Model T that Henry Ford could have raced. This one's a little bit different, right? It's lowered down. How many inches is this thing lowered down?
We gave it about about a 3-inch drop on the front and back.
3-inch drop on the front. You did that by...
We heated the axle.
Yep.
We heated up the axle, gave it a bang.
This guy right here. For those of you who
are unfamiliar. We happened to find some aftermarket brackets in the back that a guy cast out in, I think it was California. We cut the frame, modified that. So it's about a 3-inch drop front to back.
That's pretty neat. And that gives you what, better handling, speed?
Lower center of gravity, you're able to handle the curves a little better. Not that it was an issue before, but
taking this thing around,
cooler stance.
Yeah.
A little easier to handle.
You're gonna be not running the hand crank on this, right?
These rims were off of a, oh gosh, I know someone's gonna I'm gonna mess this up. Last year the Model T was a 26. Okay. 1926. And Henry Ford transitioned from wood wheels to the wire wheels, which kind of rolled over into the Model A's. They were just more durable, held up better. And we were able, a good friend of mine gave these to us for use on this project, and so that's what we're doing with that. These are technically Model T rims, not Model A. Last year,
Yeah, I know the Model A rims looked very similar, correct?
very similar. The only difference is the size of the hub was bigger for the Model A's. The way they say it is, if your hand can fit in the hub for a Model T and touch, you know it's a Model T. If the disc is bigger and there's a few inches all around, you have a Model A.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to figure it, from what I've told.
Gotcha. What was your inspiration for building the intake on that? Why didn't you want to stick with the conventional one?
Well, I don't know. Would it have been a lot easier to make the conventional intake? Yes, but I just wanted to, I don't know, just kind of snazz it up a little, make it a little more unique. Maybe has a wicked sound. But one of the inspirations was I watch a channel on YouTube, Strong's Garage. I think they're up in Alberta, somewhere up in Canada. I really like their show, or I like their videos, and they've had some vintage speedsters of Model Ts, and a few of them had some home-built, from the 30s, 40s, 50s era. They had some home-built intake and exhaust, and I just really liked the cool factor that these guys made this really crude, and I thought it looked a lot of fun, looked kind of neat. And I thought, let's give it a try. It might work great. It might work totally like garbage, but we'll find out soon enough if we'll keep it and modify it a little, or just go back to a stock system.
So you said speedster. Is this technically a speedster or a roadster? Or are they the same thing, just different who you talk to?
A roadster has the sheet metal. It's more like it'd be the version of like a two-door coupe nowadays.
Okay.
The speedster was meant specifically for racing. Typically, always it was young men who wanted just something to do, get their thrills, and they would strip it with the sheet. They would strip the body off for less wind resistance, less weight, hence going faster. Mm-hmm. And they were made strictly for being race cars back in the day. Low budget race cars for back in the 20s, 30s, 40s.
And you could argue that Model Ts started the race car, like were the official. They could.
It's not something you would argue. It's something that's definitive. Yeah. It was Model Ts were the first race car. I mean, if you think about it, you can back it up even to there was probably young men in Roman times that say, well, my chariot can go faster than your chariot.
For sure. There's always racing a horse or
something.
Riding a pig or something.
Exactly. So
cool.
But Model Ts were technically considered the first modern race cars.
Well, since I have you and you wanted to be interviewed, you want to talk about your seats? So this is, how would you describe this here? I'm gonna sit in there to show everyone what.
These seats were came out of our classroom. The frames were broken on them, and rather than throw them in the garbage, we repurposed them. We took the seats off.
Yeah.
We bolted the backrests on. I had a couple of my students who were pretty handy. I gave them a simple sketch. I said, this is what I want for the brackets. We heated up, we punched some holes in the brackets, we heated them up, bent them into shape, and then welded the bracket to the bottom of the steel frame and bolted it to the wood deck.
Yeah, so this is literally quite the learning experience. You could argue classroom to car, huh?
100%.
That's pretty sweet.
And most of this is done by the students. So
yeah. Oh, that's how
not all of it. Some of it I could not help myself. I had to do work on it. They can't have all the fun, but most of this is a student-built, student-led project. So there is that. Our goal, I don't know if Noah said, our goal is to at least get this thing running by the end of May.
We're gonna try and put it in the Jalopy Drags, Yorkville, Illinois. They have a little. How long is that track? It's a dirt track.
I want to say it's 300 or 400 feet long. Dirt track.
Yep.
There's no prizes, no times.
Good times.
There's a pretty girl out in the middle of the track running the flag. It's just more for kicks and giggles. you race your friend, run to the end of the drag, loop it back around, do it again till either your motivation ends or your
carb blows
breaks.
We're doing something illegal. Couple horse unders here. Ooh, this looks like a good run. Oh no! That car's flying, and I wouldn't be surprised if that drives across.
Sure.
So I told the kids as a carrot to helping on this, if you help me on this, you get privileges to drive it and race it this fall.
Okay.
And they're like, I mean, you'll let me drive it? I'm like, heck yeah. That's
As a
what
high
it's all
school
about.
student, well,
High
I am
school
not
students
one,
driving
but
it.
if you were a high
So-
school, that sounds like that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably would not drive it down the highway because it's not really road legal at this point. But if we can get it on a trailer and they can drive it around the fairgrounds, that's
Yeah.
still plenty of fun. That's the hope.
So now that you have all of this power, cement Model T performance,
Yeah.
how does this thing stop? What are you going to do for the brakes? Are you going to stick with the mechanical brakes? Unfamiliar with that. It is actually, I forget which lever it is. This one on the left, I think, right?
Well, yes, the mechanical
Yeah.
brakes, they are mechanical. It's band drive. The brakes run on a drum, which the
Inside
brakes-
the trans.
Inside
That's
the trans.
right.
The brakes are inside right here.
Yep.
It's a drum that's spinning, and when you want to brake, it has a wood band. And the band, ours is a wood band. The band squeezes and provides friction, and that's the brake in here. They weren't the most effective. They did okay at
just
best.
Had to make sure you had enough runway, huh?
Yes.
That's pretty sweet.
So there's that. We just picked up a starter from my friend John. So we got a starter to put in. Let's see, I don't know if Noah said. We still have a battery cage to build and make.
And this is going to be 12 volts
It is 12 volts.
as opposed to the conventional 6
Yeah.
that this would have been factored
And I know
from.
some people are saying, oh, you should have kept the buzz box, but we didn't. So there's that.
It does have a distributor. Where'd you get the distributor from?
We got the distributor from Lang's Model T parts. I think they're
Okay.
Lang's. I can't remember
Probably
if it's
out of-
Ohio
Oh.
or Massachusetts.
I would have
Out
guessed
east.
California or something.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how many hot rod parts are still actually available for Model Ts.
Oh yeah.
Believe it or not, you can get high power. You can get
And again,
for the
there's the
Model Ts,
alternator as
you
opposed to
can
the
get-
generator.
hopped up cams. You can get high compression heads. You can get some 12 volt distributors. You can get some high volume aluminum intakes. So there's actually some hot rod parts for. There are some hot rod parts for these engines. Not a lot.
What's the compression ratio? Did you know off the top of your head?
I'm wanting to say the compression ratio. I know I should know this, but I don't. I'm wanting to say it's very low compression. I'm wanting to say it was about a 4-to-1.
Okay.
Where if you get a high performance compression head, it's about 6-to-1.
So if someone was on a super tight budget and they knew a machinist and they took this stock cast iron head and they shaved it,
Yes.
they could theoretically,
You could. That's how they used to
Yeah,
do it. You could
right.
shave the head about 1/8 of an inch and get about that compression up to about 6-1.
and then
And a lot of guys did that.
what would that power increase be? I know you've researched this.
The stock engine was about 20 horsepower. They say with a high compression head, you might have pushed 23 to 25 horsepower. And you say, well, big deal.
Yeah.
But that's still a 20-25% increase, which is a lot.
You know, if
For
you
this
have you
engine.
thought about shaving that down?
It's all on the list.
Okay. So with
We got to
the
get it running first, then we can start tweaking Like, what could we do better? What could
Do
we
you think
different?
you could make 40? You think this thing would make anywhere over 30 to 40 with your carburetor, intake, header, and with your ignition upgrade as well? If you shim the head down, do you think you could make close to 40 horse out of this thing?
It'd be pushing it, but even a 30%, even 30 horse versus 20.
Yeah.
It's not so much, can you squeeze more power out of it? Yes, you can. You also have to understand the braking.
Yep.
Can you stop?
You don't need that. That's
No,
fine.
you don't.
That's
Braking,
fine.
schmaking, it's all the same.
You just hop out if you get too close to something.
One thing I did research on camshafts. Camshafts are about $400, $425. 425 bucks. Not a lot, but then again, if you're low budget, it's a lot of money.
Yep.
I read that young guys back in the day would take the camshafts out, weld on the lobes. They would take a stick welder, they would build up the lobe to get to modify the intake, exhaust strokes for the cam, put them in a vise, and then hand file the weld smooth. And it worked actually, they say, really well. Low budget way to make a hot rod cam. We haven't tried it. We're kicking that around. That's down the list, maybe.
I think you should.
But it's doable.
Yeah.
But I've read guys used to do it all the time.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't offer speed shops for Model T parts back in the day. That came about more closer in the 50s after the war.
Okay. No, that's very cool. And
it's coming along.
Trying to think, I figured there was something else I was gonna say. The fuel tank. You spoke about that today. You want to show the rear?
Sure.
So, gas tank will be. What was your idea for the gas tank?
All right. Okay, originally on the Model T gas tanks, you did not have a fuel pump. They were gravity fed. Being that since we added an aftermarket carb, which is a lot higher, the gas tank would have to be up here. You don't really want that by your head to be gravity fed. Wouldn't be a good fit. So what we were leaning towards, and we looked at buying new gas tanks. They're $500-600. Used ones are still pretty pricey. We're looking at either TIG welding a gas tank together we have some aluminum plate. We'll TIG it together, or we will get a metal gas can, strap it down to this platform, hook up a 12-volt fuel pump, and just kind of draw right out of the tank, run it right to the carb. That's probably what we're leaning towards. It seems the easiest. Will it work? We'll find out. But so far, bolt the can down, put a line in it, pump it out, and we'll give that a try. And it could be a hit, could be a flop. We'll find. That's kind of the joy of it.
Absolutely.
And that's where that's going, right there on that platform.
Right here. Now, jumping back to your front lowering kit thing.
Yes.
This aluminum bracket you have on either side, this was how much of a drop for the rear?
I want to say this was about a 3-inch,
okay.
Maybe 3 or 4 inch. I can't remember. 3 or 4 inch drop.
And I'm about 5'11", 6 foot if I'm trying to impress somebody, right? But it's about up to my waist, right? Seat area, come check that out. But even better, the steering wheel comes up to my shoulder. So if you're sitting in this thing, the steering wheel is quite literally you hit a bump, your nose is going right into that nut in the center. But gives you an idea of this would have been, another 3 inches? So
yeah,
you can see how high that would have been stock or, factory. This thing rode pretty high. And
it rode real high.
Because there wasn't a lot of roads, there wasn't paved roads back then, right? There was more dirt, gravel.
From what I read,
farm.
When the first Model Ts hit the market, there was I want to say maybe 150, about less than 200 miles of paved roads in entire North America. So 99% of all the roads were either dirt, gravel, grass, mud. So that's why you had the bridges were not really existent. So you'd have to drive through a lot of creeks, waterways, dirt, mud, etc. Snow was high.
Has the clearance.
So you had to have clearance. That's why the T is built so high.
Clearance.
For clearance.
No.
Yep.
Joke. Yeah, very cool. Well, you got any other tidbits or facts?
I got a bunch of them. Kind of the cool thing from what I read is one out of every, what they say, was it 820? Oh gosh, I want to say it was about 17, 18 million Model Ts were made.
17 to 18 million.
17 to 18 million. I know I'm getting the math wrong, but I think it was up there. And they estimate 1 out of every 250 is still in existence.
Wow.
So there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
But kind of the cool thing though with these is, I mean, they made truck versions, car, 2-door, 4-door, etc. But you also could get options that you could get the wheel spacing, that you could put these on railroad tracks and drive these Ts on railroad tracks. And some aftermarket stuff was before snowmobiles and weather came.
You get tracks.
You would get, they were aftermarket. Henry Ford didn't offer it, but you would get a second wheel, a dummy axle. This was the drive axle.
So kind of like a trailer axle.
Like a trailer axle.
Yep.
And you would put, they looked like snowmobile tracks between you'd have 2 rear axles and the snowmobile track going this way. And you would take the wheels off and put skis, or you kind of, depending on the maker, or put skis under the wheels, and it became, in theory, a snowmobile.
Very
which are actually, and those kits are,
I feel like I've seen
hard to
pictures.
find. They're
You showed
super
me
cool.
pictures of that. And we live in northern Illinois, give it away. But we obviously get snow here.
But people didn't plow roads then.
Yeah, you would just go through it.
You would just plow through it or make do. So
and these skinny tires. I mean, these are, could you get knobby tires for a Model T? Or these what was standard tire would be like?
These were considered standard.
These were standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's really neat.
Yeah, but there's so many different options. I mean, people would jack these things up, put a belt drive on it, and run a sawmill, or you could get tractor conversions for these things. Oh gosh, you could hook up belts and run the laundry machine and all kinds of stuff. So 100%.
Well, cool.
So
thanks for letting me see it.
My pleasure.
If you have any questions about this or any facts or anything you would like to know, comment below, and we'll definitely try and address those, or possibly do a future video of this thing running. Actually, we will most definitely do a future, yes, fingers crossed, future video of this thing running. Make sure you have your headphones when you watch that video. I have an inkling that this will be a tad bit loud, but it should make up for it, as it should shoot flames like nobody's business.
Hopefully not too many.
Yeah, right. You can start a campfire with that, roast some marshmallows. But thank you for watching. Again, name's Noah Taylor. It's my father, David Taylor, and Hot Rod Model T, badass build.